Hey everyone, Michael here. Now, today's topic is going to be in reading people. And let's get started. There are a few things that you do need to learn how to do before you can even start reading people. So let's get right into that. And to those of you that already know how to do these skills, I apologize. You can skip to more the end of the video for some of the more advanced stuff that I get into about reading, but let's get started. How to feel your own energy. Now, something very important to know is you should learn how to feel your own energy because honestly, if you can't feel your own energy, you're not going to be able to feel somebody else's. So, to get started, and you can follow along, is hold up your finger, close your eyes, and I want you to completely focus on feeling the heat, the cold, the air, and all these feelings surrounding your finger, and even the shape of your finger. Now you should feel one of the following feelings. You might feel some tingling in your finger, or some heat, cold, or some fuzziness. And if you were successful in feeling those, you have successfully felt your own energy. And that was just with your finger on a bit of a scale. And what you're going to want to do is by the end, you're going to want to feel all the energy in your hand. So you'll do this with each of your fingers and your hand, of course, and then you'll move on into the arm and then with the rest of your body, and you should be fine. Moving your own energy. Now that you're able to move your own energy with your just feeling it in your finger, and maybe some of you moved on to the other fingers, and that's very, very, very good. Now, for this next exercise, what we're going to do is we're going to learn how to keep the energy focused at a pinpoint spot as we move through each of our fingers here. And you'll notice it kind of almost feels like a ball moving through your hand. It's kind of a weird feeling, but trust me, if you feel that feeling, you know you're doing well. And once you've learned how to do that, you can move on to the second exercise here. And you're going to keep the energy focused right here between where your fingers are locked, and you're going to move it up through your arm, through your chest, up through here, and you're just going to keep creating a loop like that. And the reason you're doing this is you're becoming very adept at moving energy by yourself, and this is going to become very useful when you learn how to scan other people's energy. So let's move on to that. Scanning for someone else's energy other than your own. Now, once you're successful in the last exercise I showed you in moving the energy throughout your body, up through the 7 chakras maybe, or through your hands, through your feet, through your legs, that's all some really good practice. Now, for this next part, I'm going to teach you 2 ways of how to scan somebody's energy and begin to do a reading on them. All right. Now, let's pretend that this guy right here is you, okay? All right. So, all right, we've got your auric field here, or basically your own energy. And what some of you may have noticed is, like, when you meditate, you're more able to feel the stuff around you, and that is because the aura naturally expands outward when you meditate and you relax. And this also happens when you go to sleep too, and, you know, astral projection, you do actually astral project every night you go to sleep. So, with that in mind, the aura is going to expand outwards, okay? Alright, so now we're getting close over here to our buddy's auric field here. Alright, and now it's going to actually overlap. And since you're adept in feeling energies now you're going to feel somebody else's energy, and that's going to be a little different for you at first. So now that they're overlapping, I want you to kind of just feel out what you're actually feeling. And if you like, for this first time, what you'll do is, you'll just kind of sit still, relax, and let your aura naturally expand, and then you can move on to the next step, which I'll show you here. Is now that you've gotten an idea of how your energy is expanding after you kind of let it naturally expand in meditation, and meditation is still going to be useful to us afterwards because it's really good for the deeper work in letting your auric field naturally expand anyways. So what you'll do is this. You're going to kind of sit down, relax, Okay, take a deep breath. All right. Now that you know where your uritic field is and you're skilled in moving your own energy, you're going to feel for your own uritic field, and it's usually, just a few inches from your skin or maybe a few centimeters, depending. And it will kind of feel like, almost kind of like a little bubble enveloping you. So you'll feel for that, and you're going to want to give the feeling of it expanding outwards. And that should be able to move it to other things. So like this plant here, I'm going to move over to this plant. I'm going to expand my field outward to this plant. All right. And what it'll kind of feel like is like you're passing over something almost. And you'll feel yourself bump over that field. And something as a test, if you want to do, if you have a partner, is get close to somebody's hand and like this. All right, so let's say this is your hand, this is your partner's hand. You want to move your hand in until you feel like you almost enter something. That is actually you entering their uritic field. So, yeah, that's all there is to it with that. You're actually just moving your uritic field outwards, and you're sensing somebody else's energy. Now, the other thing that is also very useful, and I recommend this to anyone actually, is what you can also do is you can sit down with your person you're reading, all right, and you can establish a connection to them. So yeah, let's actually establish that connection here. So this is a chord of some sort. All right, you want to just like kind of move a little energy cord out from here and over to that person. And I can actually teach you how to do that real quick. All right. So for those of you that know how to make energy balls, this is going to be very simple, and I'll teach you how to make an energy ball real quick. All right. Move the energy up from here, up into your arm, up into here. All right. You created a little energy ball. Now it's going to kind of pool here, so it's kind of not quite an energy ball yet, actually. So you want to kind of feel almost like a ball is forming in your hand. You actually want to feel this, like, or you can even visualize a ball forming in your hand. That works too. So once you've got the ball, now you've created an outside source of energy. And this is the same thing you're going to do here. So you want to kind of go down here where your solar plexus is, and you want to feel the energy kind of build up there, and you want to focus it out into a cord, so to speak, out into a person to where it will connect with their solar plexus. And afterwards, I always recommend this, is, pull out the cord, like you're pulling out a plug. And, you don't want to jerk, or you can even cut it, but make sure you pull the plug out, basically. And that's another way you can also connect with someone and scan somebody else. But the first method I mentioned is very good for feeling everything that's in general around you, and once you're really good at it, you can, do some really in-depth readings, even from very far away. Because, for me, what I often do is, like, I'll see somebody on the screen, so, I'll see someone, like, let's say I'm seeing this person, so to speak, and it's almost kind of like my energy will move out into where they are at, and my energy will pass through their body, through their uritic field, and I'll get a general sense of what's going on in them. Anyways, that is how you scan energy in somebody. How to see the aura. Now there's two ways you can actually see the auras. You can see them physically, but also you can see them within the mind's eye. That's why with the third eye, it's also called the inner sight. So it's very important that you also learn how to see within the mind rather than just the physical sight, because your inner eye is actually going to be much more accurate at seeing things. Now, here's what you do. All right. You know how to move energy already. Now, I want you for a second, close your eyes. And you're going to feel something almost shift right up to your third eye here. And That's a sign that the third eye is there, for those of you who are wondering if the third eye exists. So there you have it there. So what you can do with this is, when you're stretching out your auritic field, you want to keep your mind calm. And you want to just let the images flood in as they come in, and you want to just see with your mind's eye. It's going to basically create a 3D image of what you're feeling. So, for example, if I hold this ball in my hand, this little crystal here, I can feel what this is here, but it's like I'm not actually seeing it when I have my eyes closed. It's the same thing with your auritic field, and that will project into your mind's eye at the very end of the day. So when you move over the auritic field, it can also project colors, the shape, the texture, and so on. Now, for actually seeing the auras physically, most people, when they learn how to see auras, they will hold out their hands here, and they'll unfocus their eyes, and they'll learn how to see it that way. Now, that's a good way, and it's a tried and true way, but one that's better that I've found is, like I explained earlier, you close your eyes and your focus shifts up to your third eye. You're going to be doing the same similar thing, where you're going to be shifting that focus up to the third eye. Because normally your center of focus of where you feel you are at is right here up in your eyes. Or when you're listening for something, your ears. So in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to find the foci of our third eye. So take your finger, stretch out in front of you. Don't stare directly at it. Move it towards you, keep it in the center of your vision, and you might feel some tingling as you actually approach, and then you're going to touch the foci of the third eye. So that's where you want to move that focus up to. So move the focus up to there, and now look at your hand again. Kind of relax your gaze, but keep your focus on the third eye itself, where you found its foci. So, and you'll notice, for those of you that are starting out, there'll be almost kind of like a whitish haze around your hand. And, as you practice more and more, you'll begin to see colors, and it'll become much more vivid, and you'll be able to see more and more of the auritic layers. And now I'm going to actually get into the auritic layers right now. One more thing before we get on to aura anatomy and the aura layers is that aura colors, there are a lot of guides out there, and they are similar, but they always don't agree, and here's why. Is the aura colors that you see are how you perceive a certain thing. So for example, like if I see like white, for example, it means purification and it's cleansing or whatever. But if like someone like in the East, I don't know what country it was, but if they see like a white color, that means death to them. So how a person perceives colors with the auritic field will depend on how that color translates to them. So colors are not always going to be the same for every person. That's why you'll see a lot of things where a person will say, oh, I see this color, and another person will say, oh, I see this color. They're not wrong. It's just they're perceiving the color in a bit of a different way. They may mean the same thing, but they may be a little different, or maybe they're reading something different. But anyways, now on to aura anatomy and aura layers. And last, aura anatomy. Using my best art skills, this is what the energy body looks like. And I could have added some more details and some more structures, but for the sake of this video, this is pretty much what you need to know. And let's move on to the aura layers. Now, the etheric layer deals a lot more with the person's general health. Now, the etheric layer, as you know, deals more with your general health. Now, if you see an aura with, like, let's say, it's more dimmer, or if it's murky, or if it has tears, cracks, and so on, that indicates some problems, and I'll show you right here. Now, on the right, you can see that the aura doesn't look in very good shape. It looks murky, it's very distorted, doesn't have any cracks, thankfully. And while on the one on the left looks very well and very healthy, while the one on the right, you can also even see some tears in there too, so that's not very good. Now, as you can see, the texture of the ore really matters because if you have tears, you have murkiness, distortions, or cracks in the aura, that's not very good. And something to take note is like if something takes place, like a tear starts up here, up in the mental layer, it can move down into the lower layers. So if it starts up in the higher layers, you're really in trouble there because it's going to move down through all the other ones. Now, while it's more not as likely to have an effect if something's down here on the etheric layer and moving on up, it can eventually affect something going up. But most of the time, anything up here, it's already going to be affecting something down here. So keep that in mind. The emotional layer is going to deal with a lot of the person's feelings and how they see themselves. Now, as I said before, the emotional layer is very responsible for how the person feels about themselves and what they're currently feeling. Now, something to keep in mind is it is a layer that works very closely with one other layer that I haven't mentioned, and that is the astral layer. Because the astral layer is responsible for all the relationships that a person has. So like with family, friends, lovers, spouses, and so on. So if something starts to go sour in a relationship with the astral layer, so to speak, it's going to really affect that emotional layer and how that person perceives themselves. So these two are actually very communicative of what goes on with one another. So as I said, like these layers are very intermeshed and they're going to affect each other. Now, most of the time, it's going to affect on down through the layers, but they also can transfers up, as I mentioned with this one. So keep that in mind. The mental layer is going to deal a lot more with a person's ideas, mental processes, beliefs, and beliefs about others, and etc. Now, the mental part of the auritic field is very, very important, and it contains a lot of stuff that can affect the lower layers because experiences, like particularly traumatic ones, can really affect all the layers below this one. So anything that happens in this layer, because it contains memories, ideas, beliefs about other people, can really begin to harm those lower layers and this one, for example. So this can really tear up this one. And yeah, so on. It's not a good thing if you get this one torn up. Now, one thing I wanted to kind of get out of the way before we get into auritic structures is some of the things you might see associated with like dimness, cracks, murkiness, and so on. Like if you have a dimmer aura, it's more likely that that person is very tired, very stressed, and they need a lot more sleep and maybe a better diet in there too. And if that person has cracks, they can have gone through a traumatic day or, something's just starting to where a tear can start. And something that you want to be very, very aware with tears is like a person that has a tear, all that energy is constantly rushing out. It's kind of like a waterfall. Like if you try to fill like a cup and it has a crack or a tear in it, it's just going to keep pouring out. So a person that bullies a lot of people, for example, they need to constantly bully people to feel good about themselves. So that water is constantly pushing out to where they can feel good about themselves. Or a person that doesn't feel very important, or they are very emotionally depressed about themselves, they don't feel good about themselves, need lots of compliments. All that water is going to keep constantly going out. Because if you don't actually take the steps in actually healing those areas, all that energy is going to be constantly moving out. So take some time to actually heal these areas if you see them in yourself, or if you're giving advice, and do this tactfully, like pushing them in the direction of actually beginning to heal those areas so that they can move on in their life and that they're not being held back by these things that are constantly draining them of their own energy. Auritic structures. Now, there are a ton of energy body structures. There's quite a few of them I've left out here, but this is the general thing you need to know for readings. Now, the primary energy storage centers are each of the primary chakras, all 7 of them. And then you have the red storage centers here, which are where all the energy is stored in your body, and they fill on up. So from the lower to the upper part of the storage centers. So the first one will fill first, the vitality that contains your raw, vital energy to your body. Next one is your emotional energy. That's why often when you get into a fight or something, you feel very drained kind of in your chest or stomach area. Doesn't feel very great. Then finally, you have your psychic energy in the very top in red, and that is actually kind of right sitting inside the third eye. So that stores a lot of your psychic mental energy. And something that you might have noticed is that each of these 3 storage centers actually correspond to the 3 auritic layers. And they work with specific chakras to actually project these 3 layers. Now, something I also want to point out is you'll see in these kind of pentagon shapes here, energy exchange ports, which actually project energies to where you take it in, you take it out, and you can see them on the hands. And that is very responsive for how energy moves through your body and in and out. And then you also have the meridians. These are basically energy pathways of how the energy gets around. So if one of these gets blocked, it's not very good. So all in all here, the point is, if there's a block there or it kind of feels like something's murky or something's messed up, that needs to be addressed. Phew. Now, I understand that is a lot of knowledge, and that is a lot of skills that you would need to learn if you're just starting out, and I understand if you need a while to process this, practice this, and get better at this, because I'll admit, that's a lot of stuff. Like, what I just listed is about, I don't know, if you worked really hard, maybe about 3 months of practice where you could have this mastered, maybe. And so that's basically the quick start of readings. And I understand a lot of this stuff is going to be intuitive as you go along. So if you do have any questions, put them below. But now let's start the Q&A. Now that we've reached the Q&A, I'm going to answer some questions that you guys asked, and I'm going to summarize each of them as we go along. Now, what this person is asking is, when they shake someone's hand or stand next to someone, they feel a circle of energy around them. And what this actually means is you're actually entering their auritic field when you actually walk up to somebody. So you will feel a circle of energy as you step into someone's auritic field. And if you want, you can test this by, getting a partner, and you can get your hand closer and closer until you feel yourself enter their field. Second question. Now, what this person is asking is that they are 70% blind in one eye and are wondering, would this be a problem for me to see auras? The answer to your question is, it might be a little bit, but not impossible to see them. You can definitely work past it, and there are some other ways besides actually physically seeing them. Third and final question. Now, what this person is asking is, they see spirits already, but they would like to know more about these spirits. Well, the easy thing is, you can just ask them. And, when a spirit sees you, they know you see them. So you can ask them that way. Or another thing you can do is you can use the skills I've shown you in this video about where you reach out with your auritic field and you can see and kind of feel who that person was and so on, and get an accurate reading that way. Hope that answers your question. Hey guys, I really hope you enjoyed this video, and if you guys have any questions, put them in the comments below. I may even consider some of them for future videos and answer you guys that way. But anyways, like, subscribe. I really enjoyed making this. Have a great day, guys.